Hey guys, it's Chloe. I am so excited that you're here. If you are excited that you're here, please make sure that you go down and you click that little like button and then also you subscribe. Um, I'm really excited that you're here because today I kind of have a special guest onto the podcast. This is a little bit different than me interviewing another professional in the field. Rather, this is me having a beautiful conversation with someone who is on her journey of amenorrhea and eating disorder, specifically orthorexia and anorexia. She's on her whole journey of recovery, and she has some really exciting news to share with us about where she's at in recovery and the switches and transitions that she has been making to lead to all these positive things that have been happening in her life. And so I'm going to let ELENA share her big news. We do that kind of more in the middle of the podcast. I mean, the whole thing is her sharing her celebrations, but specifically towards like the middle, we finally go and share the big news about what happened with ELENA this past week. So ELENA, by the way, is in the Get Your Flow On course. She joined like day one, and she's been really active part of the community, and it's been such an amazing just an amazing time to be able to get to know her and to guide her and to help her throughout this whole journey of her recovery. And so she does share a little bit about her experience with deciding to commit to recovery and joining in the course. But I know that for me, when I was suffering, it was so helpful to hear other people's stories and to hear that they were going through very similar things as I, and then to see them have made, really good improvements towards their recovery. And it was kind of just like inspiration to continue with my own journey, and also like validation of like, this is possible, like I can do this. If she can do it, I can do it. So hopefully this podcast episode just really inspires you guys and gives you that hope that you can do this too. So without further ado, let's just jump into this podcast.
ELENA, welcome to the Feed Your Flow podcast.
Hi, Chloe. Thanks for having me today.
ELENA, do you want to tell the lovely ladies how you found me?
Yeah, okay. So I was a little bit desperate and was kind of Googling
Just
around.
a little bit. Are we ever just a little bit desperate?
Yeah, you know how the internet can be, like it can come into a spiral. But anyways, I was like on YouTube, and then I found Chloe's channel, and then I found her blog, and I just was extremely taken aback by her view on everything and how different it was from everyone else. And I just loved her energy. I loved just seeing Chloe and listen to her voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life. And so I started kind of watching her videos and reading her blog posts, and then following her on Instagram, and all of that just content was just, it really hit home for me. And then I started to like, okay, no, I'm like, okay, I need to, maybe start changing some of the things I'm doing, even though it can feel really scary and like you don't really know what to do. But then after seeing the evidence and just watching Chloe, that really kind of solidified for me what I had to do. So yeah, that was a long ramble, but essentially I found Chloe on social media.
Yeah, so two questions there. One, what was that moment for you? Like, when did you finally realize? Because so many people are on the social media, and they're following recovery pages, but they're not necessarily doing anything about it, which is okay. We need moments to absorb. I get it. I had my same moments of just following all these people, listening to all the podcasts before I made steps forward. But what was that like decisive moment where you're like, this actually needs to change, and I actually understand kind of what I am going through now?
Yeah. So I guess for me, since I was diagnosed with my eating disorder when I was 13, and I mean, I'm 21 now, and I just realized that I wasn't really living, and I was just so tired, and I was pushing everyone away, and I just knew I lost that kind of spark in myself. I lost ELENA, I lost who I was. And being in medical school as well, and it's like I had started going to the hospital for placement. It's like I didn't like I couldn't make myself go. I had no energy. I was just so turned off by everything. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, what's going on? Like, this is not me. And I was just feeling physically so unwell. And I just remember, this is kind of dramatic, but I remember being in my apartment and I was just like bawling my eyes out, and I was on the floor, like curled up in like the fetal position. And I was like, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And then I knew, I was like, okay, it's time to change my life around. And I knew it was gonna be hard, but I knew that if I was gonna kind of keep going down this road, it would just get worse, and I'd probably have to go to the hospital and that kind of stuff. And I knew life was going to be so much more than that. And after seeing Chloe and just seeing everything that she went through, like very similar to me with regards to overexercise and orthorexia and everything like that, I knew there was kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
You hit rock bottom. And this sounds really mean of me to say, but like, I think it's super necessary for a lot of people to hit rock bottom, for them to, like, obviously I don't want people to reach that space, like, because it's a really dark, heavy space. There's a lot of desperation, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. It can be really scary, but it's sometimes almost like a necessity to get people to finally be like, this has to change. I hit my kind of my bottoming moment of like, nope, this no longer can be a thing. Most of my clients who come to me, they come to me after they're like, I finally had this moment where it was like, I'm done, can't do this. I'm like, it's so apparent now how unattractive this is. I'm still stuck in it, but I'm seeing and feeling just how gross this feels. And I know that there's more. And I think that that knowledge of there is more is super, super important. And that's why it can be so inspirational to follow recovery accounts or to listen to other people's stories, because it's like, oh, wait, they got out of this. There's hope. And that gives us that like, okay, I can do that too.
Yeah, for sure.
My other quick question for you before we dived into, I want to hear about your story and kind of where you're at now, and you have some exciting news to share with us, so we're going to hold out on that for just a little bit. But I'm just curious, out of pure curiosity, what social media platform do you follow me most on, and which one do you enjoy more? Like, which content form do you like more?
100% Instagram. Like, I love your stories. Like, I don't look at a lot of people's stories, but like I have certain ones that's like every day I'll look at them, and you're one of them.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. I love the Instagram too. I mean, I love YouTube for more of the like longer form chatting and everything. And of course, podcasting's fun because I get to chat with other people. But Instagram is like, we're here. This is my life. This is what we're doing today. And so
Yeah.
It's fun. Okay, so now I want to really dive into just a little bit of your background and your story. And again, I think I was telling ELENA this before, it's always really helpful when we just hear other people's stories and then we can see the progress that they've made. And it gives us, again, that little spark of inspiration of like, I can do this too. And it helps when we really connect with people and being like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm not insane. I'm not the only one that does this. Like, I thought I was crazy for like hoarding food. And then I find out that that's a very common like eating disorder behavior, is to hoard food. So I would love to hear kind of this journey where this began. I'm going to start out by asking you a question and then we'll go from there. I actually ask this to literally every single one of my clients. Like when we first start meeting, this is always, I don't do too many things similar with my clients because everyone's unique, but this is the one thing that I do. I always love to ask them, when was the last time that you felt like completely free with food, free in your body, had no eating disorder, like food was natural, being in your body was a happy time? Do you remember that time or that moment?
Oh, geez. I was probably 8 years old.
How did that feel to just like, you're living with mama at that time? Yeah. How did it feel just to eat your mom's food, to just be living?
Amazing. Like, it's like you didn't really think about it. And it was always like, I just knew what I wanted. And I'm like, hey, mom, I want a grilled cheese sandwich, and that's what I'm going to eat. And it's just like, you don't second guess anything, and it's like you want the treats and you want to get the cookie, and you're not looking for the smallest cookie with the less chocolate chips. Like, no, I want the big cookie with all the chocolate chips. And it's just, I remember even like I always wanted like chicken fingers, like fried chicken fingers, and my sister, she was like, no, we always have them like that. Can we have grilled chicken? And I always want chicken fingers. And it's just funny because like now it's like, oh, you like, more calories, more breading, whatever, whatever. But not, but like back then you didn't think of that kind of stuff. And I was just, it was exciting and it was freeing. And I just wore my clothes without thinking about how they looked and what other people think about how I look. And yeah, that was a nice time in my life for sure.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned the chocolate chip cookie. That's totally who I am now. When people are like serving dessert, I'm always like, oh, I want the bigger piece. I want the corner piece of the brownies. Like, I'm like, I want the best part, right? I want the bigger part, the best part, the chocolatey part. Like, I want all of that. So what happened here? How did you go from this, like, and share just what you feel comfortable sharing. You don't have to go into detail if you don't feel like it, but I'm curious what started to happen to get you to go from this kid who was like, I want a grilled cheese, let's have a grilled cheese, I want all the chocolate chips and the cookie, to all of a sudden going through an experience of not feeling so comfortable with food and not confident in your body.
Yeah, so I was a competitive gymnast for like 13 years of my life. And that was probably a really big contributing factor to my eating disorder, and being in a leotard all day and having to flip around and try to be small as possible, um, and have kind of all those girls around you in the toxic environment just eating low calorie foods and how can I eat less, and very pro diet culture, and having certain coaches weigh us and not let us eat certain things, or like criticizing us for eating certain things at snack time. And yeah, that was huge. And I mean, you want to be the best, right? And it's like a lot of really good gymnasts were small, and you weigh less and you can flip faster, right? So everything was an incentive. And and also it can happen so quickly, because when you're training 25-30 hours a week really intensely and not eating a lot, it's like you don't really realize how quickly the weight starts to drop. And when you're surrounded by that 6 days a week, it can kind of just take over your life.
Did it become kind of a competition amongst the other girls as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate when you have coaches as well. I mean, you were young at this point, and to have an adult come over to you and say you shouldn't be eating that for a snack, that is like huge red flag, like a big no-no. Like, that's not how we should be approaching food with children specifically. I mean, adults too, but specifically with children, as they're really formulating their thoughts and their views of the world, to tell them something so like, no, that is bad, you shouldn't do that, that kind of really sets them up to forever view food as this good or bad thing, instead of what food really is, which is this completely neutral thing that really is dependent on so many factors and so many things. It's, food's going to be supportive for you based on the health of your gut microbiome, based on the thoughts and the feelings you have towards that food, based on the season. If you're trying to eat salad in the middle of winter, it's not going to be supportive for you. If you try and eat salad in the middle of summer, it's a kind of different story, right? And so it totally just puts it in this box over here of the good or the bad, instead of seeing it as, again, the food is neutral. And I think that is so key for anyone listening to really try and learn that, of like, there's no such thing as good or bad here, and that all foods can be enjoyed, and that there is nothing that needs to be, unless it's poison. But I love to tell people, I'm like, if it's in a grocery store, if it's at a restaurant, it's not poison. So unless it's poison, we don't need to be staying away from that.
Yeah.
So at this point, did your parents like
So
They say
I
anything?
mean, the thing is, I guess my eating disorder was very sneaky with how it kind of went about its thing, because like I was gone all day, right? And then I'd just come home for dinner, and like I'd eat a fine dinner, and like my mom, she's Spanish, she cooks like amazing food,
Mhm.
and it'd be happy days. But I mean, I'd go to the gym in the morning at 7, like not eat breakfast, and then like wouldn't really eat all day, and then it's just like it happened. And also like a lot of us were naturally very small anyways, so it's like it was a little bit difficult for them to realize what was happening, I guess.
Can I pause there for a moment, Elena? Because I think this is a really good point. You started doing all this at what age?
The eating disorder stuff.
No, being a gymnast.
Oh, I started when I was 3.
Okay, so this is great. So you started when you're 3. A lot of the girls, they start really young, right? You kind of have to for being a gymnast. So you said a lot of us were naturally kind of already really small.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, though, that you guys hadn't hit puberty. And once you hit puberty, you were restricting and exercising tons and already putting this like pressure on you to stay small. I remember I
Mhm.
used to always think like I'm just like super small boned. I'm just like a really tiny human being. And while I'm not sitting here thinking that I'm, huge or whatever, I know that like it just genetically I am more like leaner, but like I'm not this like I have boobs. I used to think like I'm just a
Yeah.
person who didn't have boobs, right? I was like, I'm just like super, super tiny and I don't have boobs and I naturally have six-pack abs. And I'm like, no, that was completely false. I naturally have curves. Like when I'm eating for health, I naturally have curves, I have big breasts, like I have a booty. That's just what I got going on. But I suppressed myself from the age of like 13 into my 20s, right? And so I thought I was a certain way, but again, I wasn't actually, I just didn't ever allow my body to fully go through puberty and to fully just like grow and expand into the size and shape it wanted to be. So I just thought that was like an interesting note because I know a lot of people say that when they're like, I'm just small bone, I'm just naturally really small. I'm like, are you? Or have you just not let your body fully develop? Because
Yeah.
we see that in, I started to see this. I compared myself a lot with my younger sister, who was 4 years younger than me. So when I was like 14, she was, she was younger. She was 8, 9, whatever. Why can't I do the math on that? She was 10. I was 14.
I'm like, yeah, yeah.
So she was like 10 years old, so she was a pubescent girl. So I started developing breasts. I started getting really curvy. This is right before this, like right when my eating disorder started. And I felt very subconscious about my body and about how I was bigger than her. And I thought that I needed to be as small as my younger sister because look, something obviously is wrong with me because I all of a sudden started to grow curves. Problem was I was comparing myself to my younger sister who again was pubescent. And so once I became like 18 and my sister was stepping into 14 years old, she all of a sudden took her natural like size and shape, and she's since then developed into that, and she's gone on to pregnancy and her body has shifted again and changed, but she grew into her breast and her just curves into everything like that. And so again, I was like comparing myself to pubescent girl, or we compare ourselves to models who are starving, or to the other girls who were also under eating and doing sports and things like that. And we think that, oh, this is just my body needs to be really, really small like this.
Yeah, no,
Anyways,
that's a really good point. But yeah,
yeah. Also,
yeah,
kind of other side note, we probably shouldn't be the same size and weight as we were when we're 13 when we're 30.
yeah.
Like there's an evolution and process that should happen of like you should grow and you should develop. But anyways,
Hmm.
I think a lot of us try and just keep ourselves as small as we can. I'm like, it's kind of anti-biology in nature, and you study medicine and you know that we have to go through these different developmental stages, and it's super important too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The eating disorder wants you to look how you did when you started, pretty much. And it's, yeah, it's not really,
So
yeah.
you said that you started dealing with some orthorexia and everything. I'd love to like dive into your experience of that. Orthorexia is something that is really common, but a lot of people don't know that they deal with it. So I'd love to hear kind of your experience of what that looked like for you. And hopefully anyone who's listening might be like, oh, huh. I wonder if that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm going through right now.
Yeah. So I was officially like I was diagnosed with anorexia, and then the orthorexia came kind of later, but like it was always kind of prevalent. They didn't really diagnose at the same time. But for me, it actually started with when I got really sick with a viral infection and my body wasn't really able to fight it off. And I guess this was because I was probably nutritionally in debt anyways. And I had like a low grade fever for 2 months, and like I was so sick, and like, yeah, I went to like sick kids in Toronto. Like I was just like, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And then after all of that, my gut microbiome was so messed up, and I ended up developing lactose intolerance. So that was amazing for my eating disorder, because it's like, woo,
I
like,
have an excuse to not eat dairy now.
yeah. And I would like remember going to with my mom to the store, and I was like getting all the almond milks and blah blah blah, and I was so excited, and like this was just the beginning, right? Um, and it started quite subtly, because I knew, like, realistic, like I knew I could still eat lactose-free milk and lactose-free yogurt and like still get all those nutrients that I needed, but it chose just to be like, no, I'm gonna be dairy free, just because like I want to be really safe, and like I don't want to get sick. And that's how it started. And then it then just wanted to always eat as little as possible and move as much as possible. And I remember counting calories, and when I would like if I were ever to bake something like super healthy and that tasted nasty, but when I was to do that, I had a notebook in my room, and I'd like calculate the calories of every single ingredient and the fiber content, and like add it all up, like, oh, I'm making 12 muffins, divide it into 12, and like, how much fiber does that have? Oh no, it doesn't have enough fiber, like that means I'm not going to go to the bathroom. That was another big thing. Like I was really obsessed with my bowel movements, like obsessed. Like if I didn't go one day, like I would just like my world would be over. Like it would, yeah. And I mean, yeah, that was something I was really obsessed about. But anyways, we can talk about that after, I guess. But yeah, so the calories was big, and then just not wanting to eat with other people, being really anxious at restaurants, and just not wanting to do that. And then also my snacks, like I remember, I don't know how, but I remember my total snack caloric value of the day had to be 70, which is like crazy. I was like eating rice cake. Yeah, like I was eating, like, I remember it was like they were like apple cinnamon flavored like baby like rice snap cake things, and like popcorn or something. Like but I was
like
really
no butter, no oil, no anything on the popcorn, I'm sure. Yeah.
No, it was like the skinny pop, like 30 calories a cup, and then like a couple rice cakes, boom, done. And I was also developing a lot of OCD tendencies, not only around food, but around everything. Like I remember I had a clock in my room, and like I couldn't leave my room unless I looked at the clock 3 times, and like to know what time it was. And I would like, even I like when I showered, I do like rituals, and like, and I could never decide what I was to wear, and it would take me an hour to decide what I was going to wear in the morning. And it was just kind of took over my life, really.
And for those of you guys who don't know, OCD behaviors are really heavily correlated with malnutrition and with eating disorders. So we see that as like a co-disorder a lot of the times. And that's just, again, another testament to how important nourishment is and having a good, healthy gut microbiome, because when that is off and when the body's in energy debt, all these OCD behaviors start becoming really, really prevalent.
Yeah. And I was also really anti-carb. Like I didn't want to eat carbs. I didn't really want to eat anything that wasn't a vegetable or a fruit. I was really particular with how many fruits and vegetables I ate, and like oils, and like everything just had to be counted and measured. I remember at one point I was actually measuring all my food and like weigh, like I literally made my mom like weigh my freaking chicken that she would make me for lunch. And I remember one time she like did it wrong and she was like crying, she was so upset, and then I didn't eat it and it was the whole thing. And it just created so much tension with my mom, my dad, everyone, my sisters, like my whole family. Everyone was just kind of walking on eggshells around me because they're like, I don't want to say something wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to do something wrong. And holidays like caused a lot of distress, and really anything that made the eating disorder unhappy, which was like a lot of things, caused some issues. But yeah, I just wasn't really excited ever about food, and it was always like trying to, yeah, eat as little as possible. I remember going to school and like not eating breakfast and feeling so dizzy. And but I just like, oh, I also would drink a lot of water. Like I would pretty much just guzzle down water to like be full.
Which,
and I remember, oh sorry, no.
No, you go. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of a lag there.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you know those like big like Gatorade green bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I lived 10 minutes away from my school. My dad would drive me, or my mom, and I wouldn't eat breakfast, but before going to school, I would have to drink a whole bottle of water, like from my home to school. Then when I got there, I'd fill it up and I'd drink a whole other one. Like, I don't know how I did not, like, seriously, something worse happened to me. But now that I think of that, and oh, it's really scary. But
well, you're in medical school now, so I'd love if you want to just share with the girls how dangerous that can be. Just the drinking way too much, hyponatremia, right?
Yeah, hyponatremia, all your electrolytes are going to become like, all the water is diluting all the electrolytes in your system, so they can go low really fast. And we need all those for essential bodily functions, especially the heart, to keep it pumping, because you can go into cardiac arrest and die very quickly. It is extremely dangerous. And I know we were talking about this with Chloe the other day, and it's always like, you see people with water all the time, drinking. It's just like, you really, really have to be careful about that.
Diet culture has pushed on us to just keep on drinking. A lot of girls do it to, of course, just to numb out hunger and stuff like that. And they don't realize it's like, we need to be intuitively drinking, just like we need to be intuitively eating, intuitively peeing, and intuitively breathing and doing all of that. It shouldn't be a bodily function that we need to force. Like we shouldn't have to force water upon ourselves. It's unhealthy to just be like, I have to drink this much every day. I'm like, yeah, it really can be super, super, super dangerous. There's something I wanted to ask, but it might come back to me. I'm forgetting in this moment, but I want to move on to kind of how you got into this healing process. For those of you guys who don't know, I don't know if I'm going to put this in the intro or not, but Elena is a part of the Get Your Flow On course. And she's been there for a while now, and she actually has exciting news to share. So I'm going to go ahead. I want you to, one, share your exciting news, and then two, kind of share your journey to getting to how you got to where you are right now and the whole kind of process of healing.
Yeah. So I got my period yesterday.
She's like, so exciting.
Exciting news. Yeah, I was crying. Like I was able to share it with Chloe and all the girls, and it made that moment extra special. I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, super, super amazing surprise.
How many years of amenorrhea?
I was well, okay, you know what? This is actually kind of crazy because I never really had like a real period. So I don't know. Like because I got put right on the OCP, and So it's really messed up. I'd say probably like maybe like 3.5, or I'd have to do the math, but because I only have like one real
Years.
period. Yeah, I only have like one real period in my life, but
Mm.
that's another kind of story. Um, but yeah, a couple years at least. And how I got to this place. Okay, so after that kind of really low we were talking about before, I just knew pretty much everything that I was doing was just kind of digging my hole deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I knew I just had to get out of it. I had to get out of it. And so I started eating more, a lot more. And I remember at the beginning, it was like, I wanted to eat like every single day, like all of the time, like every single minute and I just couldn't, like, I couldn't stop this mental hunger. And I just sat, listened to it, ate food and ate I just started, I kind of did like a 360. I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring the dairy back in, bring the gluten back in. Like I just brought everything back in and I just ate. And it was amazing how my body was just like, yes, food, we
Mhm.
love it. And I stopped working out. I just stopped moving. Like, I mean, I like would walk around the house. Like I would like not move all day, but my body was so tired and it was like, this is great. Like we don't have to do anything. We're just eating. And the mental struggle was actually really, really, really prevalent in the beginning. And then after a little bit, I just realized how much better I was feeling, how much happier I was feeling. The other people my family was noticing, and I was kind of coming back to life. And I started meditating and journaling and doing all the things with Chloe once the course started. Like I started the all in before the course doors opened because I was really anxious and
You're like, I gotta do
stressed.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just followed like Chloe's advice of the all in of like stopping exercise and just eating more. And so I was able to do that. And yeah, it's pretty much it. Just like added the butter, I started eating the cheese, milk, and
So you
all.
added all this stuff in that you previously told yourself, I can't eat, I can't have, this stuff is bad, or I'm allergic to, all of that. I know a lot of girls are the classic gluten-free, dairy-free. So how was that experience of adding it back in? And I know everyone's experience is different, but I think a lot of girls necessarily aren't going to react negatively, but they think they're going to. And it sounds like you didn't have that negative reaction.
No, it's funny because I was actually working with a nutritionist and she didn't want me to be eating gluten and dairy because it was inflammatory. And it's kind of funny because when I had sessions with her and I'd be like, well, what if I feel like eating a cookie? And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what if I feel like eating a cookie? She's like, what kind of cookie? I'm like, I don't know what kind of cookie. What if I want a cookie? And she's like, we'll find you like a coconut macaron recipe. And I'm like, no, like, and then it's funny because after she was kind of taking that away from me, it just made me want it that much more. And
Mm.
I came home and like I would tell my parents, and I'm like, she's not letting me eat cheese, and I love my Gruyere cheese and blah blah blah. And then I was just like, I was so fed up with it that I just ate it because my body was like wanting it.
You wanted
And
freedom. You wanted that freedom. You were done.
yeah,
And that is a point that a lot of people reach, which is like, I'm done with feeling restricted all the time. I just want to be able to just have a cookie, just a chocolate chip cookie. I don't care. Whatever cookie just comes my way, I want to be able to eat it without thinking, oh, someone said I shouldn't do this anymore. It feels very disempowering. And when we recognize it's disempowering to constantly have someone above us saying, you can do this, you can't do that, it's like, oh my gosh, wait, I want to feel empowered again to be able to just make my choices of whether I eat the cake or not. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I was always really, I was really worried about, oh my gosh, it's gonna hurt my tummy. But I did rely on digestive enzymes in the beginning. I have to say that was a big struggle. Like I not only with the tummy part, but just with like the swallowing part, because like as we talked about earlier, all the muscles were like shutting down. Like there was no peristalsis, and like like there was just losing its function. And I remember like I couldn't even swallow a pill because like I just felt like a big block like in my chest, like it was just getting stuck. And I hadn't experienced that ever before, so I knew I was like, okay, this is pretty bad. So I, yeah, it's very uncomfortable, and it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But just you just close your eyes and you just think about what's on the other side of all this and how this uncomfortability is only temporary. And you lean on your supports and on all your like all your tools in your toolbox. And I think that was really what helped me the most.
Mm. Yeah, we had talked about that freezing up, that constriction today in the Get Your Flow On course community. We're talking about constipation really was the main kind of topic because a lot of the girls are dealing with a lot of digestive issues, a lot of constipation specifically, and it's really uncomfortable. And they love to blame the food and, oh, it's because I added this back in and everything. But we really talked today about like the root cause, both with just your metabolic state, and that's due to the food choices and exercise and all of that. But also we talked about the psychosomatic connection between that, like I'm closed off, I'm like everything's tight, right? And we really work on in the course is opening up. Like I'm always like really aware of my posture when I'm with clients of like, I'm just open, collarbones are open wide, or I'm just shaking it off. It's okay. It's just holding space for this whole journey and learning how to open up and to release this tightness, this restriction that a lot of us are just in this like chronically constricted state. And when you're in that chronically constricted state, digestive issues and so many things are going to start happening, and specifically digestive issues we're talking about. Just everything's going to shut down because it's like, when you're about to go give a talk in front of like say 500 people, it's like you get really queasy, right? Your stomach's like you can't eat, you're like so nervous. That's akin to what's happening too when you have this energy of restriction of I can't have that, this is bad for me, and oh no, and I'm really worried about gaining weight and all that stuff. It's just constricting you, and so your stomach is literally, or your whole intestinal tract is literally going into that like freeze mode of like we don't want anything. Your body does want things, but in that state, in that energetic state, it doesn't. So the key here, because we need food, our body doesn't survive off thin air. The key here is to learn how to open up, to release, to let go of those thoughts, those energies towards food, those emotions towards food, to rewrite that narrative, so that when we step into a place with food, we feel relaxed, we feel a lot more open. So now the digestive system can work. So I love how you mentioned like what you did was you started thinking of what are the benefits of me adding back in this cheese. It's something tasty that I like. I get to just eat with my family. My food stuff isn't an issue anymore, and I can tension with other people. I get to live freely. I get to be spontaneous. I can eat a cookie on just out of the whim. And that is what allowed you to like, okay, I can open up to this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also like to think of how I was tired of letting the eating disorder win and kind of take over my life, and I knew I wanted to take charge, and that a lot of those thoughts that I was having with the eating disorder was because I was in such a malnourished hypoglycemic state, and I just kept telling myself, I'm like, you're not thinking clearly right now. So just to kind of keep going with what I'm doing in the times where I was feeling like a little bit of lack of motivation, I was just like, no, like this is not you. This is the eating disorder. So keep going. Like it's a lot of just self-encouragement. It's like, you got this, keep going, keep going.
Well, and now you have a group of women to help with that encouragement.
Yeah, which is so, so, so amazing because I tend to be the person that's like, no, I'm fine. I can do it on my own. I don't need anyone. Perfectionist. Like I can do it all. But when you just allow yourself to open up and to use the tools that are available in this world and all the resources, and it doesn't make you inferior, it doesn't make you weak, which is the lies that I keep telling myself, and I'm sure many of you are telling yourselves, but it's helping you and it's supporting you to get to a better place in your life. And it's actually the opposite of being weak. It's being strong. It's taking a stand for you and for your health. And it makes the journey so much more enjoyable. And you get to meet so many lovely, amazing women and Chloe. And I really believe that it can change your life.
It like, yeah, the community has been blowing my whole mind, and there's so many of you guys who are just so active there in the community, and I just love the encouragement and the inspiration. Like someone the other day was like, I ate a bagel for the first time, and then all these other people are like, I'm really afraid to eat a bagel, but then like, okay, let's all challenge each other to eat a bagel, and then all of a sudden bagels are all on the feed, and then now we're all gathering together on Sunday to eat bagels together. And it's like, it's really cool to see how just like one person making a shift and a change and going after her recovery just kind of trickle down affected everyone. And conversely, we had one of the girls this morning be like, I'm not feeling too good, how's everyone feeling right now? And I was like, great, yes, let's all stop and let's all just like let's all put out there in this space how we're feeling, what we need help with. And I started responding to a couple things. So people started answering of like, I am really happy you've been doing this, but feeling anxious about this. And I think it's just so important to, again, like Elena said, not being that like, I can do this on my own, I got this. Like it's something really healing to finally be vulnerable and be like, let me open up and share with other people, this is what I'm going through. And have them be able to respond and be like, oh my gosh, I went through that too. And maybe they have a piece of advice of this is what got me through this. Or even just knowing I can go and talk to, there's like 30 plus women. I think there's like 34 women now in the group where you can go and just be like, can I have someone just listen to me? Because like no one else really in our life, it's very rare that we meet someone else who's going through orthorexia, exercise addiction, and amenorrhea, and like all of those things, right? So it's really nice to finally like have this group where it's like, you guys understand, like you understand when I went out to dinner last night that I got really anxious about this. And that's just really cool to be able to have that type of space to feel really seen and heard and held and supported, and people there just like cheering you on. I would love to know, Elena, what your favorite part of the course has been so far.
Oh my gosh, that's hard. I would probably say my favorite part of the course is the community for sure, because it's a 24/7 daily active, engaging community, and I never realized what the power of community was until I joined this course. And there's all these different chats that we have going on, and I love that we celebrate our wins, and every single one of us is just so proud of each other for doing all these amazing things. Even if it's a little step, it's still moving forward and so important. But we're also there when, like Chloe said, when we're not doing so well, and it's like we may want to revert back to old habits, or we're struggling with certain things, and it's like without the support and the push from these girls, like it's very easy to kind of go back into
So easy.
Old habits.
Like,
or
no one will know, let me just start counting calories again. Yeah.
So it's almost like they keep you accountable, which is so amazing. And then since we also have all the amazing modules that we're doing kind of on the side, we're also able to share with each other our kind of key takeaways from the lessons, which is so amazing, because I feel like everyone can kind of take away a different detail, or like they may have a certain view on a topic. So it's really nice to kind of compare and contrast that. And then we share all our recipes and cool food, and it's like we just inspire each other with like, oh, this is what I ate for breakfast, like or I need some snack ideas. And it's like they'll there'll be a million snacks coming your way. So
There's like a million chocolate mousse recipes now in the recipe
yeah,
section.
for sure,
Everyone's
yeah.
gonna have chocolate mousse. But it
yeah,
does it. It goes like, oh my gosh, all these other people are gonna make the chocolate mousse. I can make the chocolate mousse too. And it is that like, there's something about seeing other people do it that really pushes you to want to, it's kind of FOMO. It's like, wait, everyone's doing this, or like everyone's coming to the bagel meetup. Like, I want to do that too. Like, I'm really pushed forward, and it's like that. This journey, I should say, really requires that. It requires the consistent commitment. And that's where I see a lot of people go astray. That's where I went astray so many times in my own journey, was I'd be like, I can do this. I'm going to eat more. I'm going to not exercise, and I got this. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm like reverted back to all habits and didn't have any of the tools that I teach in the course to help me like reduce anxiety about all of it. Cause then I just got hit with a bunch of guilt, hit with a bunch of anxiety, a bunch of fear, a bunch of doubt and everything. And that always felt really bad to go back into things. And then it was a whole thing. You got to start back up again. I feel like this is finally like giving you girls the like chance to actually full on reach recovery, because it's like, nope, we're all moving. Don't miss out on the train. Like, we're moving forward, and it makes you want to like continue going on that same path. Plus, we're celebratory human beings. We really like there's a reason why the "that was easy" button was created. It's because psychologically we love that feeling of like, that was easy. And so it's the same thing when you go on and you're like, I just got my period, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, this is so great. Like, good job, Elena, everything. It's like, whew, yeah. Well, let me continue doing this thing, right? Or like, we celebrate, going out to dinner and letting the waitress pick, and it's like, well, I'm gonna do that again. Yeah. Instead of having like, oh my gosh, I went to the restaurant and like the waiter picked and I'm so nervous, and oh my gosh, and I never want to do that again. It almost doesn't give you a chance or an opportunity to get really nervous about it, because you're more excited to share, and you're excited about all the positive like reaction you're getting from it. And that's just psychologically how we humans work. Like, we like positive reinforcement, which is why with our kids, we're always like, yay, you're walking, good job. Like, we give a lot of positive enforcement to kids. And we need that as adults too, I feel like, to really make these like transitions forward. I'm like full on, after seeing what the course community has done, I'm full on just like, this is a prereq to working with me one-on-one now, because I'm just like, I can't provide what the course can provide with just me. I can provide you great information. There's, a time and place for one-on-ones, but I'm like, I want you to also be a part of this community, because I think the community is actually going to be what's going to drive you really, really far in the recovery. And I like totally underestimated this power that the community would have. It's brought me to tears like multiple times. I've just been like, 55 unread messages in the group. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing in here? And it's so great to see just everyone like, I'm like, do you need me? I mean, it's fun to be in there, obviously, but like, a lot of you girls are getting it. And I hear the stuff that you guys are picking up from the modules, and you're responding in like in a way that's like, hey, this is what we learned, remember this. And it's so great that every single time you repeat it to someone else and to yourself, you're ingraining that as your new narrative. And that again is key. And so if you're around a lot of people, like, I'm Southern California, so it's diet culture heaven over here. I'm around a lot of people who speak diet culture stuff. So if I'm going back in the real world and just hearing all this diet culture stuff, that's going to continue to be that narrative. But if I can every day tap into this narrative of people being like, I had brownies after lunch, like, that's going to start rewiring that narrative for me, and have that actually be a consistent thing. Okay, I just rambled. Another question though, specifically in the course modules, what was your favorite lesson or your favorite just module? There's different lessons in each module, but
yeah, so far I loved the diet culture module. I didn't realize just how toxic it is, and all these things that are just like engraved in your brain and pushed into your head. Like, it's crazy. And Chloe goes after every single myth, and she like untackles them. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it feels like another world, and it's like, whoa, it's like you're actually brainwashed, and I did not realize it. And it actually blows my mind. And so I learned so much, and I have like my little notebook, and I like continue to just go read through them. And that was by far my favorite. And then
love that module,
yeah. And then there's like the journal prompts too, which are amazing, because it's not just like, for me, it's like, yeah, I'll watch a YouTube video or I'll like do a lesson, and it's very easy to just forget about it. But with all the meditations and the journal prompts, and it's like sending a message in the group, what I learned, and like continuing to practice these things every day, that's what really is going to make the change in the end. So it's applying that to your life too, which I think has been a big game changer.
It's key.
Yeah.
I've met with so many people that I'm like, you're such an intelligent human being. You know everything about food freedom. You know everything about toxic diet culture. You know all of that stuff, but you've yet to implement that knowledge into wisdom. And that's the key. And like, you can't talk yourself out of an eating disorder. You can't do it. You physically need to start changing those thoughts, changing what you're eating, changing your emotional reaction towards things. Like, you need to actually experience it. And now all the journal exercises and everything are there to help you actually be able to now implement that into your life, which is key. And that is what makes the difference between just like watching a YouTube video. It's hard because I have to hold back a lot on YouTube videos. I'm like, I want to give you guys like everything here, but it's just, you can't dive through those type of processes without having gone through the whole conversation. So having this more, open eyes to diet culture and how we've been told all of these lies and all the myths that it tells us, how has that impacted your food choices and how you view maybe different conversations you hear around with people, or you view packaging at the store? How has that like changed your view on all of that?
Oh my gosh, I feel like a different person, seriously. Even when I see my friends and like we're going out to eat, and they take a double take. They're like, wait, you're gonna eat that? Or like, are you sure about that? And I'm like, yeah. Or like, and then I remember like we go out and like I'll eat and like I'll actually finish my food, and they're like, wow, like you actually ate your food. And I'm like, yeah, because everyone's always used to me being like the little girl that just eats her little salads. And I'm like, no, like that's not me anymore. And it's really interesting how when I'm also out with friends and like someone will say something like pro diet culture, and how I just get really like angry inside. I'm like, no, don't say that. But it's kind of,
but you can see it. You can see it now.
I can see it.
Key.
Yeah.
That's the key, is you're like, whoa. Like, once I started doing a lot of body image work, I would notice that girls would like look in the mirror and they would say these things of like, oh my gosh, like I am feeling so fat today or whatever. And I would just like, all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, instead of accepting that and being like, oh yeah, like you're dissing your body right now, I would sit there and I'd be like, well, that's a really sad narrative you're telling yourself. Like, you're telling yourself that you need to go and restrict this food because you think that according to what diet culture standards of beauty is, that you don't match that. And so you're going to not nourish your body. Like, that's a really harsh narrative. And I started seeing it in such a different way, which allowed me to now have that narrative for myself of like, oh my gosh, don't be like dissing on your body. Like, that's really harsh. Your body is here doing everything it can to keep you alive. Like, don't be giving it this like story of it's not good enough. And so it starts to just like change all of that. Yeah.
Everything. Your whole life. Yeah. And then even like with the store, like I used to get so anxious about, actually at first I love going grocery shopping because I could like read every label, and I'd like spend 5 hours at the store. And then after I started hating it because I just got really anxious about like being around food and like going to the store. So I kind of had like two scenarios. And now it's like I don't really think about it. It's like I kind of get annoyed. I'm like, oh, like I need to go to the store and buy something. Like it's another thing to do, but I don't really think about how many calories the whatever has in it. It's just like grab it off the shelf and go. It's just another thing you do. Like you're walking into a coffee shop, you don't really think about it.
So I had a friend who, kind of an older friend who I haven't talked to in a couple of years. He actually reached out to me. This is probably like a month ago, and he was like, "Hey, so like, cooking up any good stuff?" Last time he saw me as vegan, I was like obsessed with food, and it was the same thing. Like walking in the grocery store for hours. It was like my favorite hobby to do. It was just like walk into the grocery store and look at all the food that I wouldn't buy. Um,
Yeah.
but he asked me, he was like, "Yeah, cooking up any good stuff?" I was like, "No, actually, I'm in a really big, like, just like receptive energy with food lately." And he was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" I was like, "I just want to eat good food that other people make me, or go out to restaurants. And like, I haven't been eating my cooking." And like, literally, like, I am so just, I'm not anti-cooking. I think it's really beautiful to know how to cook and to prepare food for you, but I'm in such a state even now, and I feel like it's just the more and more I am out of this journey, right? Even years later after recovery, I'm just like, I don't know, I don't want to cook. Like the idea of like sitting in the kitchen for 3 hours is just like, no, why would I do that? So, like, my mom asked me the other day, she's like, "We're having this like big dinner party for my sister's like pre-wedding thing." And they were like debating, like, "Oh, we won't get catered. We'll just have like Chloe cook, Chloe and my one other sister cook." And I was like, "No, no, I don't want to cook. I don't want to do that." Like the idea of having to cook for all those people and to not be able to spend time being with the people, I was like, that's not worth it. I'll buy the catering. I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to be in the kitchen on that day. Like, and even with like grocery store shopping, where I'm just like, oh, I have to go grocery store shopping. Like, it's fun. Again, I love to nourish myself, but I'm more in the like, can we go out to a fun restaurant? Or can we just like all have taco night together? Or can we just like, I want to be in community when I eat. And I don't like the idea of just like going to the grocery store and finding out like every little thing that I'm gonna eat for that week. Like, I like being in the just surprise me with what I'm gonna eat mode. But anyways, it's been so different to step into that receptivity. In the past 2 months, I've only been at my house 2 times for dinner and cooked for myself in the last 2 months. Like, it's just been consistent dinner parties, restaurants, barbecues, things like that. And it's really nice to full on be able to step into that receptivity. And I'm sure you've been feeling that lately, of like going to dinner with your family and things, like stepping into
Yeah.
that, just like, oh, actually, I don't care what we eat tonight. It's nice, huh?
Yeah. Actually looking forward to that. Yeah, I used to be the one that would like want to prepare everything, spend hours in the kitchen, and
Oh yeah.
like now it kind of like you. It's like I would rather go out. Like it's like I thought I like loved it and like love and like I'm a foodie and I love cooking and I love baking and like cooking for everyone and like not eating it. Now it's like that doesn't appeal to me at all. Like I literally rather watch a Netflix video or something, like anything. Like I
Just plop the
like
food in front of me and let me eat. And I want to eat good things. It's not about like, I want
yeah.
to eat plain things. I'm just interested in food. I'm very interested in food. I'm not interested in preparing it for hours and overthinking it and like doing all that. But I'm like, I want to taste good stuff. So like, let's go out to a nice restaurant and get like a good steak. Like, I want to just like experience that. Yeah, and it's not, again, it's
Yeah.
not to say that cooking is bad or having like a love for cooking for others, but it is different when you finally realize, oh, these things I told myself I used to love to do, I actually didn't. It was my eating disorder who loved to micromanage everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
you kind of learn who you really are and not who the eating disorder told you you were or what you liked
totally,
and didn't like.
totally.
Yeah.
So overall, Elena, with everything that's happened this past couple months for you, going all in, getting in the course, being a part of this community, doing all these journal exercises, and you having all these tools now in your toolbox to utilize for recovery. Um, how has that experience been? Like, would you have wanted to do it any other way? Are you like super stoked that you decided to like join the course and actually commit to recovery?
Oh my gosh. I am the happiest I've been in a really, really long time. And yeah, a million percent super happy that I did this, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. Like, I mean, I have a therapist alongside this course that kind of helps me with that stuff, but this has made the biggest impact in my life. And not only have I noticed it, but my family and my friends and everyone in my life has really noticed how much better I am, or how much more of the old ELENA is coming back. And even in myself too, like life just for the first time in a long time feels good again. And I don't feel like I'm in this box. I don't feel like numb all the time. Like all my emotions are suppressed and like nothing matters anymore. And it's like I'm excited again and I'm looking forward to the future and continuing on. And yeah, I really couldn't be happier. And I never thought that I could get to this place, because after a long time you feel a little bit hopeless. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna be like this forever, and like this is just who I am, and you don't realize who you are without the eating disorder, because he is you or it. But after coming to this course and doing all this work and having my tools, and you really can start to like like separate yourself from the eating disorder. And I never thought that was going to happen.
It gave you that hope sparked the actual actions forward of like, this is a possibility. So for anyone who's on this podcast, knowing that the possibility of recovery is 100% there for you, and you're 100% able to reach this place of recovery. But it will require, again, the tools. It will require the connection, the vulnerability, the dedication. It will require really being committed to this journey in order to get there. Like you couldn't have just all of a sudden started falling back into old behaviors and started over exercising, stuff like that. You had to stay committed to, I'm going to do this. And so again, being a part of that community was a big part of like, oh, I'm committed now. I want to be a part of this and move forward and like get to a different place in my life. Being mindful of time here, wrapping this up, any piece of advice you would give to someone who is where you were, say, 2 years ago?
I would do the 15-minute consultation with Chloe and join the course. This is the best investment for your health and for your life. And I'm sure you spent more than that amount of money on health products.
Oh my gosh, I'm like vegan protein powders. Like, no.
Yeah, my one piece of advice would be to talk to Chloe and join the course, and your life will change for the better. I'm sure of it.
Well, thank you so much, ELENA, for coming on and just sharing your story, being vulnerable with us. And again, we're all, me, all the girls in the group, we are all so excited about you getting your period back. It is such a beautiful first step into like, yes, my body is like, it's so encouraging, right? Like my body is saying yes to all of these things that I've been doing. Like the food has been positively impacting me, and not doing exercise has been a benefit and not something bad like my eating disorder has told me. And so it's never the end of the journey necessarily once we get the period, but it's that really beautiful start of like, okay, I'm doing the right things. I'm really feeling encouraged now. Let me continue on. And it's just such a beautiful to step into hormones again. It's so beautiful. Like, I can't wait for you to like now have consistent periods hereafter, of just like noticing the cycles that your body goes through. And I talk about that in the menstrual cycle module, about the different seasons we go through the month and how important it is to honor those and to play with them. And I can't wait for you to just like feel that and experience it, because it's really, really, really fun to finally be like, yes, I am emotional and I have different feelings and different ways my body feels throughout the month. And it's really beautiful when we choose to see it that way.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah, I had never been happier to feel bloated yesterday. So
Yes. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I love that. All right. Well, I will see you in the community, and to anyone else who decides to join, I will see you guys in the community as well. I'm in there. Elena comes to like all of the lives, so she gets to see the lives, which are great. And yeah, we're super active over there, and we're super welcoming to everyone who comes. Two people joined like yesterday, and they said hello, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, we're here to support you, we love you, welcome. And I'm just like, you guys are great. Like, I didn't even need to tell anyone to say hi to to introduce each other and to be welcoming, and everyone just naturally was welcoming. And I think, again, that's just really beautiful to see. So thank you, Elena, for being a part of the community, and again, congratulations.